So, what did that feel like for you to be homeless at 16?
Well, during that time, I had a boyfriend at the time, and he was a drug dealer, and that affected our lives, but it also provided for me at the time, and not in a big way either. It was more of he bought me food once in a while, but it was mainly up to me to take care of myself because my mom allowed him to stay at their place and they kicked me out. So I wasn't living there, but my boyfriend was living there. And we ended up separating because that was just, I ended up doing absolutely everything by myself. And I felt like I was drowning.
Haley, thank you so much for joining us. I've read a little bit about your bio. I'm very intrigued because you've been through an awesome lot, and there's quite a few questions around what you've been through, but also other questions that I have, but I don't like to share. So if you could just give us a little bit about what happened in your life that led you to where you are today.
Thank you for that. Wow, where do I begin? Something that has been a huge obstacle lately that I've been healing from, that I feel resonates with a lot of people, is abandonment. And that started at a very young age with my father and the dynamic between my father and my mother. They were very, very young, teenagers, and he was not around for a majority of my childhood. And that started the cycle of my toxic relationships and my own toxic behaviors as far as pushing people away. There was a lot of trauma that I endured as a child, and having to raise my younger brother and being, living in a trailer park in poverty and trying to survive at a very young age. I wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for the little voices, you got to be a little delusional, but I didn't understand it at first. But those internal whispers really guided me up to this point. But the biggest hurdle is that abandonment and attachment of like codependency. And even in my most recent relationship, I recognized my behaviors regarding codependency and where that stemmed from. And it was just a continuation of repeated cycles throughout, my childhood, moving into my teen years, and then up until adulthood. There was near-death experiences. There was a lot of addiction. There were a lot of relationships that were they were scary, like a lot of domestic abuse and verbal, mental, emotional abuse, those types of things. And it was really, I was mimicking the relationship styles and behavior that I saw growing up. And I just feel if it wasn't for a belief in like a higher purpose, it wouldn't have gone as far as it has. Specific like examples. I think of my cat is scratching the door. Opening doors, huh? I think of all the opportunities that it has led me to, opening doors, as far as being able to listen to my intuition and guiding me towards different career opportunities too, has helped lead me. starting with the military, I ended up joining the military because I was homeless, 16 years old in the state of Michigan. And I was trying to, I was working 3 jobs. I was going to school. I ended up getting into a community college. But during all of that, I moved from one crazy phase into the next. I ended up becoming, after the military, working for a financial firm as an operations manager. Then I ended up becoming a personal trainer, and I started my own business, and that kind of evolved too. But I see all those things as stepping stones into a bigger purpose of things that really set my soul on fire. And that all of that, I feel, has led up to this point of connection with other people, of networking, of being able to story tell to heal. And that, I feel, is so important to story tell. But yes, the stepping stone throughout my life of how I define like where my purpose is, what it is, that kind of thing, has drastically changed, but each part was very significant in a different way. I feel like that's like so much, but there's just so much more, and I'm not sure how to like, put everything together into a nice, neat little package.
You don't need to. So going back, what was your parents' relationship like?
Well, they did not interact. I saw that my dad tried to write a couple letters. As far as that, my mom did a good job at keeping him away. There was, that wanting an abortion was thrown out a lot as far as me being a dumpster baby. And my mom was struggling through her own traumas and projecting a lot. And they were so young, and I feel they didn't know what to do, and they didn't have proper support. And so they did what they thought, was best with what they had. They just didn't communicate or connect or put me in the forefront. So I felt very abandoned, but I feel that's like a something that is an epidemic, is when people desire love and connection and family. I mean, I was absolutely something I did too. I wanted a family, so I had a son. And it's a beautiful blessing. But if I were to do the work and heal, I would recognize that my desire for a family wasn't what I actually wanted. It was that love from my parents that they couldn't give to themselves. And so they weren't giving it to me, and it affected me growing up, which the same thing with their parents, it's generational, just passed down, all that pain, especially because my family is mainly from Europe, from Hungary and Germany. So, and my grandma, she fled here during war and had to separate my uncle and my mom. So my mom came to the States when she was 12, and my uncle stayed in Germany. And so there was a lot of like alcohol addiction, abuse, things like that were just passed down. And also, the father being absent is a continued thing in our lives. Like my son's dad is not in his life. He fled to Ireland, and we don't know where he is. We have no support from him. But it's just this continuation of, my parents, their parents, going forward. But yeah, their connection was non-existent, really, and also with me.
So what did that feel like for you to be homeless at 16?
Well, during that time, I do have a few teachers, one specifically that I am really close with now to this day. They got together and they supported me. They got me gift cards for food for the grocery store. So it was really learning to receive and to know that I am worthy of receiving and that I am enough. And it was such a tumultuous, difficult era of my life. I don't even know how I made it, because I attempted suicide. But it helped me see truth, with connection and support, and how detrimental a victim mentality can be, how we are our own worst enemy and our own resistance, and the way that we, shape and sculpt our mind is a direct reflection of, what we bring into our life. And so that period of time being homeless, I was doing absolutely everything I could, and I was looking through the lens of society, what success was, not what success was to me, and that my worth was defined by my productivity, which is absolutely false. And that was also a learning curve during that time. But I mean, I had to learn all these things really early, which I feel is something that a lot of people don't tend to pick up on until later in life. And so I'm grateful for that opportunity to have learned so early these lessons, but it was very, very overwhelming. However, I trusted the unknown. I surrendered, and I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I had no clue, but I just knew those little voices literally guiding me since I was a little baby, like little gal. And I'll never forget all the visions and things that have helped me, because I ended up, a crazy story during that time, I met one of my mentors. Her name was Sharon, and I just got a brand new TV, first TV, and the cat that was living at the place I was at, they knocked it over. My TV broke. I was like, oh my gosh, I just saved up, I just got this. I'm going through all this right now. Woe me, being a victim. But I removed it. I was like, okay, let's go take care of this. We'll figure it out. It's like this, like the little devil and the angel on your shoulders. That's what I feel it relates to, is my negativity of old past conditioning, and then no, this is the right way. This is your way. This is what your soul desires. Okay, listen to that, follow that, even though this creeps in. Anyway, I went to Best Buy to return this TV, and they would not let me return the TV. And I literally just bought it within 24 hours. This wonderful old woman right down the counter from me, I was like bawling my eyes out. She wrote me a check for $2,000. My mind was blown. Never anything like this has happened to me. A stranger writing me a check for a broken TV. Unbelievable. And we ended up getting really close. She took me to food pantries. Like, she let me store all my stuff in her basement when I left for the military. She was my saving grace. And something she said to me in the very beginning is, God sends his messengers, and whatever you believe in, source, whatever God, deities, anything, I feel that higher power is always protecting us when we follow our hearts, when we listen. And that, to me, when she said that, I was like, yeah, you are one of them. And I've always had, and she's not the only one, I have always had these random encounters and experiences with beautiful souls who are like literally God's messengers. They save and they help. But in order to do that, like, there has to be balance. I also have to give and help, in order to receive. And I have to be on my path. If I am fighting myself and not on my path, that's when everything starts going downhill. So that, yeah, that was the experience being homeless.
Yeah, because you had 3 jobs, supporting yourself, your boyfriend's being taken care of. In fact, you're probably taking care of him as well.
Yep.
And then you go to the army, which is, I would assume, healing. I don't know, because they would treat you as one of the team and not everyone fend for yourself. Is that what happened?
I did learn camaraderie from that experience. I did absolutely learn how important connection and diversity with connection was. Before, I had a little bit of an idea, but it didn't become apparent until I did join the army. I still experienced feelings of being an outcast, being individual, not fitting in, those types of things. But that was my own mentality. That was my own looking at myself in such a negative way. But the military was very bittersweet because I had a lot of lessons learned. And then there were a lot of things that I am now aware of that I do desire in my life, like that, the diverse connections and having support from one another is super important. But I didn't feel it was healing in a way, but it also caused a lot of additional trauma there's certain stories in that experience
Tell me about that. Tell me about that, because you're a woman in a male-dominated industry, society, whatever area of life. Mm-hmm. And I know I've heard stories, horrific stories of women having to go to war, and because you're part of the men's team, you are going to sleep in the same tent as them, and there's no comeback. Nobody looks out for you. Is that how you experienced it as well?
So being a female, I was lucky enough to be in a platoon that had a couple other females too. So I never went to war. I stayed stateside the whole time. However, I did I did get put on the wait list to be deployed, but during pre-deployment training, I had a heat stroke, and then I ended up having onset heart problems from that. And then they ended up kicking me out after I re-enlisted because I wanted to keep going, being at full time 8 years. But there was just so many, I experienced MST. I worked for a big, I want to be careful with how I'm wording this,
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for a brigade. I had a very specific role for a very high up individual who was in charge of the brigade. And I was in an office with other higher up people. And there was one incident. MST is military sexual trauma. So that's one incident from someone that I was working with in that area who essayed me. And it was common to be sexually harassed in that environment. And it was common to be treated like you're no one, especially being a female. There was this one time we were in Camp Atterbury, and my squad leader, he dipped cans, chewing tobacco. And there were, oh gosh, there had to have been 8 other people there, at that time. And we have these big FLAs, which are ambulance trucks. And because I was a medic, so that's what I did. And we had these ambulances, military ambulances. And he was freaking out about he lost his dip. And out of everyone there, he made me look through all the trashes to find his dip, only to find out it was in his pocket the whole time. And then he proceeds to tell me, to lighten up the situation, a joke about, why can't Helen Keller drive? I was like, well, she was deaf and blind. And he goes, no, because she's a woman. I'm like, whoa, okay. So it was just those are just little bits of, examples of what it was like. It was constant like that. your emotions, your opinions, they were invalid. You were just a number and you were just a cog in the system. You know, like you are this just pawn that has to do what they tell you to do. And if you're a woman, you're weak. You know, the story is, I feel it's shifting nowadays. 10 years ago, though, I mean, even further than that, it was way worse. But when I was in, I had a lot of very older in charge military men. So that was very, very challenging experience.
Yeah, okay. So what happened was you left home into another type of abusive situation. Okay.
Yeah. A totally different, but like exemplified, you know?
Yeah, I think you kind of felt like you needed to experience all the types of abuse.
Oh, I certainly did, especially in my relationships, all my relationships, all my workplaces, all different.
Yeah.
I feel very different, specific types of trauma that have led me to this point of being able to share these stories to help people, especially when it comes to suicide and sexual abuse and
Mm-hmm.
like attachments, like those types of things I can actually speak on and I care about because like I've lived through it. And oh, it's there are things that people I feel are hesitant to speak out on too. And I even now I'm still shying away from wanting to speak on it, but I know that like in my heart it feels so warm and important for me to share these stories.
Yeah. Well, often people say you looked for it or whatever. I mean, you didn't look for it at all in any way. And if you get victimized, then somehow you're to blame. And that's just the way it's always been. But the thing is, it did happen. How do you deal with it? How do you cope now having experienced something like that?
So the coping process during and shortly after are insurmountable to the coping that I do now currently with my practice. But also too, I have been so dedicated like the last 5 years of just every single day, working on myself. And so back then I didn't understand how to cope with it. And that's when I cycled back through addictions and being provocative, those types of things. I didn't understand how to heal, and it led me into more abusive situations. Up until about 5 years ago, I encountered a very traumatic relationship that lasted the span of like 3 years. And he had his own issues and he cheated a lot. And I made a lot of compromises that ended up, I should have put boundaries. I shouldn't have been in that situation, but I put myself into some really uncomfortable situations that I'm look back and I'm like, oh yeah, Haley, that was not okay. That I had to heal from. So now what I have done most recently in the past year is incorporate 20 minutes every single morning, 20 minutes of breath work, and not just any breath work. It's like making sure we balance our divine masculine and feminine. So breathing in through the left and then, exhale, breathing in through the right, using our mudras. And that has helped practicing, 20 minutes of breath work. Something else that has really helped me is being honest with myself, journaling. And I'm not a big writing person. I used to love writing, and I'm doing my best to write more, writing a book too. But like that's being able to get what's in our heads out onto paper is so important, because what we think is in our heads and when we get it out and we read it out loud, it completely changes. We look at it and we're like, oh wow, okay, I need to take a step back. Okay, I can do this. And then it just really, I feel brings enlightenment. It allows you to change perspective. It allows you to dig deeper into maybe like your inner child, whatever it needs to be for you to process things and understand the root cause of where these things stemmed from. So that way you can heal and you don't have to live with this insane emotional turmoil every day because of what happened to you. Like, we are not defined by what happened to us, but we can use that as power to guide us. And journaling has really been that source for me, along with, I don't agree or condone like external validation. I feel it's different, but when we seek out feedback from individuals who are unbiased to our situation and who are people that we desire to be like, if they have qualities that we're like, yes, I want to be in your space. I want to learn from you. You inspire me. I feel like that is healthy when we are not venting just to vent, but to obtain solutions. There's a huge difference, and I feel our society has muddled that down as far as what venting actually is and how it can be used appropriately for healing. And that too, if we don't have a lot of connections externally, learning to love yourself, by far. I know journaling is a great tool, breath work is a great tool, but ultimately it's like the love for ourselves. If we do not love ourselves, if we do not learn how to do that, we will keep repeating these toxic cycles. And to learn to love yourself, for me, that looked like experimentation. That looked like taking risks. That looked like putting myself in uncomfortable situations. And then from there, I learned so much about myself, what I want to do, what I don't like, what I want to carry as far like into my future from that experience. Like that right there, love yourself. And it's such a hard thing to do because we have been so like programmed to be consumers and to find, love in other places and other people, when it's all internal. We have everything within.
Yeah. Well, it's a theme that comes up over and over again. And I think it comes from the school, it comes from the church, it comes from all these systems that self-love is selfish. And so it's been ingrained that you always give to others. Even when you're a child, you get told you must give your toys to your friends to play with, even when you just received them. You haven't even played with them yourself. How can you share something you don't even own yet?
Right.
Yeah. So you went from army to a personal trainer, is that right?
Yes.
So how did that happen?
So when I was in high school, that's when I started seeing my dad more, like every other weekend. It was my choice. He ended up buying a house in the area, so I thought, why not? I biked everywhere, so I visited him. And he was in the process of becoming a personal trainer himself. He ended up owning a gym, but then it fell through and he ended up selling it. However, as of this day, I have learned a lot of what I did was to gain his approval and attention. And it hurt me in the end, but also helped me heal and see and be more aware. But his influence physically helped me see that I wanted to help people. I wanted to help people learn to love themselves, but I didn't know how. I just knew that bit, whatever that looked like. And so I was sitting, I worked at a financial firm. I thought I had everything set. I had a nice big office. I was like in my early 20s, mid 20s. And I was like, this is perfect. Like I made it. I'm successful. I'm making all this money. I got all my space. I sat there over 9 hours a day in that office and just hating myself, hating what I was doing. And I was like, ooh, I don't, that word hate, that feeling, that's not the life I want to live. And then it's just like that little voice again kept telling me, you're meant for more, you're meant for more. And I'm just like, okay. So I ended up going back to school, which this past May, I graduated with my BFA in sculpture, and I start my master's in January. That was starting in the process of 7 years ago. I was like, okay, I'm meant for more, go back to school. Okay, great. I ended up realizing that I wanted to do art. When I first went back to school, it was for business and it was for other people. It wasn't for me, for myself. I had another very I want to say heavy voice, like a very stern voice telling me to move, like I needed to do something. I needed to take action. I ended up getting let go from the financial firm because I took advantage of the freedom that I had there, and I used it to focus on school and art. And I also started in the process of getting my personal training certification while I was there. So as soon as I heard that voice, I immediately, that's always been a thing in my life. As soon as I get that, I immediately go boom, 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 like everything I can do. What resources are available? Who can support? What do I need to do? Make a list. Let's do this. It's always like, it seems so constructed, but I don't construct it. I just follow it. So that's what happened in this situation. I got let go, but I was already getting things in motion. The ball was already moving. 6 months. I had 6 months. And that seems to be a common theme too, like 5 to 6 months of, okay, can you trust? Can you have faith? Are you going to follow through with what you've put out there that you actually want? Or are you going to fall back into old patterns and regress? That is such a challenging space to be in, to surrender like that. But I got my certification, and literally within that time frame, I got a job at a corporate gym, one of the biggest gyms here in where I live at. And I was making a great amount of money helping people. But from this experience, because I also got fired from this too, because I started the ball rolling of me wanting to do something different. I didn't want to work a 9 to 5. I don't want to be in this kind of system. But what I took from that experience, from helping people, it was just so beautiful. There were people, for example, I trained this one girl. She was a nurse, and it was just through my stories and my communication. That was literally it. Me asking questions and caring, making people feel seen and heard changes their lives. It's not about me giving you a workout program and telling you how to move or what to do. It's why are you actually here? Why did you get overweight? What are you waiting on? You're waiting to be yourself. That's why you're packing on weight, because you're not being genuine to who you are. So being able to be aware of like, okay, it's not actually programming and helping people learn what to do physically. It's helping them see their potential and their truth. So this gal who was a nurse, I'm so sorry. The gal who was a nurse, we had these conversations, and within the year, she ended up going through the whole program and became a firefighter, like something she wanted to do her whole life. There was this other guy, I don't remember what he was doing at the time, but we talked, and within like 6 months after training him, he ended up starting his own construction business. I have so many instances of these individuals that I trained during personal training that I recognized it's not actually the personal training. It's like earlier I was talking about those stepping stones. All these things led more and more to clarity of who or what I want to do or become. And that personal training experience really amplified that feeling of wanting to help people in a way that isn't common or commonly seen. I feel, the world that we live in now, it's like, yeah, go to the gym, like all the time, you got to work out. But really, it's so simple. It is so simple. You don't actually need that. Like you can you can do your inner work. You can eat healthy. You can go for a 30-minute walk every day and you will be fit as a fiddle, like that's it's really all it takes.
You said something profound, because weight is not a food thing. It's not an exercise problem. Because if it was, then everybody who's following the traditional way would have lost the weight and kept it off. But they don't. They gain it back. So weight is a mindset. And like, you're the first person who said that it has to do with your authenticity. And that just hit me, because I've never seen it in that way before. And I think it makes so much sense, because you're protecting yourself from being somebody, and maybe you're afraid of being vulnerable.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because of bullying, because of control, or whatever the reason is. And I hope people are listening to this, because when you get to the root of that, you don't need the weight. You can shed that weight like old skin. It's not about that. But anyway, kudos to you, because a lot of times, just like teachers, sometimes we have teachers in our lives that stand out, not because they're good teachers. Yes, they were that too, but they see something in a student that other people don't see. And they become like those earth angels, like that lady who gave you the money for the TV. It's like that we see those people, and I'm sure everybody can relate, because we all have those kinds of teachers or angels in our lives that have come across our path in some way, shape, or form. Just like there are the monsters that come across our path.
Yeah, absolutely. Both.
So, okay, so you got fired from there too.
Yes.
You clearly don't want to just walk away. You'd rather get
that. I feel that stems from childhood too, is like, I would rather self-sabotage and push myself until I get pushed away so I don't have to confront. So that it's like, okay, it was meant to be, and you can't ruin anything that is meant for you. So in my mind, I was like, if this job is meant to be for me, then they will see my value and they will keep me around, even though I am putting my energy into my own personal endeavors.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so that's what is that? Anxious avoidant, or
Yep. Yep. I'd rather just, okay. But
yeah,
it was scary, because honestly, those are the only first and only 2 jobs that I have ever been fired from. Since then, I have not had an actual like W-2 type income job.
Yeah.
So it's a different world now, but like growing up and all that, I always quit. I would always quit when I got scared. I would always quit when things got hard. I would run away. But then it transitioned. It was after the military. Is that, the military really turned some switches, and then it ended up becoming, okay, I'm going to stay here. What's meant for me is for me. And if I'm meant for something else, then I'm going to find it, and I'm just going to allow it to be, and I'm going to focus on me. So that was the big turning point, is focusing on me without the fear involved. Like, yeah, I know there's a possibility I'm going to get let go, and I'm okay with that, because I know that there's something else that I should be doing.
Yeah. So you're a single mom, and you're not the only one.
Yeah.
What words of wisdom can you give to other single moms out there? Because I think it takes courage, and it's also the way of the world right now, because women are left to become father and mother, and you cannot be the father, you can only be the mother. But yet you kind of feel like you're depriving your children of that father figure.
Absolutely. And that's a challenging.
I have a quick request. If you're enjoying this content, then please subscribe. It helps our channel to grow, which will bring more people with inspirational stories just like this one, which in turn will reach more people like you. Thank you. Now let's get back to the interview.
It's a dilemma to experience. It is so common. Whew. It gets me so emotional only because this has been one heck of a ride. I've had multiple mentors, spiritual mentors, who have helped me on this journey. And if it wasn't for their inspiration, I feel I would have been stuck. And the wisdom that I gained that I feel was most important is that our children are reflections. They are here to teach us lessons. So if my son is struggling with his anger, if he's stealing, if he's hurting something, or, you know, whatever it is, it goes deeper than him and what he is projecting. I need to look back at me. I need to see, what kind of energy am I projecting around him? Am I in a mindset of fear of finances? You know, am I struggling? Am I projecting that energy unknowingly? And he is absorbing it, because they are little sponges. You know, they can sense energy immediately and they don't even understand it. They're just like, I know this. So understanding the mirror theory it has been one of the most life-changing things for me personally, to understand him better, and also giving grace, not just to him, but, you know, to myself. So being a single parent, like, it's so easy to fall into a pit of despair and the victimization and being like, I don't know what to do, I'm drowning, you know, and it's so hard to pull yourself up. But if we can self-reflect and understand the pain that we have, then it lightens the load for them. And being able to have a different perspective also helped me see the generational trauma that was occurring, those patterns that I saw in childhood that I was mimicking. And it can be the littlest of comments, you know, the way that we say something, the way that our tone of voice is. Every little thing matters when we are around our children. And if we could see them as teammates instead of a child, then the world changes for both, you know, not just for the parent, but for both the child and the parent together, creating a stronger bond, because they are not being seen as some obligation. They are feeling accepted and heard and seen, which is what we desire and what our inner child desires. And that if we weren't taught that, we don't understand it, we don't know it, we're trying to find it, but we're still projecting old ways of being and doing that we saw growing up onto our children. So unraveling that makes a world of a difference.
Yeah, because we always want to give our children what we didn't have. But you can't give your child a dad if he's not willing to be there.
Yeah.
You know, for love or money, can't do it. Yeah. So what is your relationship with your brother like now? Because you said earlier that you needed to look after him, take care of him.
So we have never had a close relationship. We are siblings through our mother. His stepdad was very abusive, put me in the hospital. That's a whole experience. But my brother and I were never close because of that. And I learned it was because of my resentment that I had growing up. I as soon as he got old enough, I'm doing my own thing. I'm not looking after you. Like, you're on your own, right? Like, I was on my own, you're fine. And I honestly never had a sibling connection or understanding what a sibling was meant to be like, or it just felt distant. And to this day, I actually got a message a couple weeks ago from my mom, the first time I've heard from her in a few years, since 2018. That's a whole story too. But she told me that he's in prison for child abuse, domestic abuse, and it's 3 years minimum as of right now. I talked to him a couple times on the phone. The last few years, when I started doing all my healing work, I opened up my home to him. I knew he was struggling. He had multiple children, different women, on low income, just all of these things, situations that he chose. However, I had no control over that, but I could offer a helping hand. He didn't want it. He didn't want to move to South Dakota, where I'm at. So it's always been a very strenuous relationship. We've never really talked about our past or our feelings or what we expect. It's always been you're a human, I'm a human, we experience these things. Okay, good luck.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, you've probably agreed that we chose our parents and we chose our circumstances, and your family's there to grow with you, not necessarily grow up with you.
right. Absolutely. Yeah,
So
that I think about that often too, how we chose before we even came here, all of these things, all of these people we meet in our lives, our families, everything. We already put it there.
somebody said the other day, and I thought that was so amazing, that the people that are your nemesis are actually good friends on the other side. Because why would you want to lower your energy so much to help another soul grow?
Yep.
So on the other side, it was like, yeah, thanks so much for doing that to me. You abused me, you put me in the hospital, or whatever the case is. It's very hard to understand that and be forgiving of it in this, when you're on this earth, because life is difficult. Yeah. Okay, so you're now a spiritual life coach. Is that what happened as a result of your personal training? Because fine arts is obviously your outlet, your creative outlet. Yeah. So what does a spiritual life coach do? Or in your case, what do you do?
So this was definitely a result of what I recognized when I was personal training. And then as far as getting deeper into spirituality for myself, learning more about myself, doing, plant medicine ceremonies, things like that have really opened up my vision to what I wanted to do, what I want to become. And there's times where I will present it as simply life coaching or transformational coaching. The spiritual part can be very offsetting to a lot of people, even though it's so simple. To me, it's just energy. It's just reading yourself. But what that entails is teaching people tools like mindfulness tools, different types of breath work and meditations, because I'm certified in both of them. And it helps with that process, along with different types of tools for emotional regulation, like emotional anchoring or writing prompts, different types. There's so many different types of journaling that you can do depending on what you're trying to target, what you're trying to figure out. There's so many resources out there that help with certain situations. So if I have a client who's looking for, clarity to make a decision, okay, I have some activities, I have some worksheets. We're going to go through and we're going to define, What are your beliefs? What are your habits? What are your desires? What are some pros and cons about, previous jobs that you've had? Let's get everything out and get to the bottom of why are you here with me? So that's really what I want to do. And what I am doing is empowering people to see who they are, to see what their soul wants, what alignment looks like for them. I don't know what it looks like, but I can help them open their eyes to it. And a lot of times there's so much resistance. But helping people work past that resistance is such a beautiful honor, and it brings me so much energy and joy. And every person is so unique that I have to constantly be resilient in the ways that I guide and inspire, the tools that I bring to the table. It's all dependent upon that individual, where they are at, because it's so important to meet people where they are at, because I can speak woo-woo and crazy, delusional, not crazy, beautiful, but there's people that they have no clue at all. Anything you say energy and they're like, what? Like, it's a whole different world, but that's okay. It's okay for wherever anyone is. The point is to help them see themselves, to help them love themselves. So it's absolutely something that I took from those experiences, mainly personal training, that I carried over into what I do now. And my biggest thing that I want to get out is that we can find something, whatever that is, that works for us in creation, because we are all creative beings. And I come across that so much, is that I'm not creative. I don't know how to stop. Okay, do you cook? Okay, do you rearrange your living room? Do you garden? Do you sing? There's so many ways to create that I feel we create limitations on ourselves. And that's also too why I introduce therapeutic art as well for the sessions that I do, depending on the person. So for example, there was this wonderful client. I had her take a personal mug that she had, some feelings towards, and I had her smash this mug, and I had her just visualize, letting go all of those negative emotions, those opinions, the words, and just letting it all out. And then I taught her how to make a mosaic picture frame using those pieces that she smashed. So being able to transmute, that negative energy, experience, memory, and making it into something beautiful that she can see every day, like, that makes such a huge difference. And it doesn't have to be physically making art. Like, you can go make some muffins, whatever it is, but helping people find something they never knew existed even is just amazing. It's an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you were in corporate and you're not cut out to be working for somebody. So what does art do for you personally? Like, how do you feel when you're doing it or when you're thinking about it?
So there's a lot of imposter syndrome that comes with this
Really?
type of work. Oh, yeah. Not just with doing the coaching, but like art itself. There's so much to do with disconnecting and allowing yourself to just be and create. I hit blocks and walls when it comes to creating. I have the imposter syndrome of feeling like I'm not good enough, but I know I am. Like, I'm in an exhibit right now. I have some great work. Like, I know I am, but that old self creeps in sometimes. And throughout the last couple of years, introducing the therapeutic art into the work that I do with my clients has helped me also to do the same thing, to embrace my inner child, to not be afraid of making mistakes, to just explore myself and whatever I'm doing and experiment, and to let go of any fears that are holding me back or limiting me. That has just transferred into life itself, you know, with interacting with people, with taking new risks, with whatever it may be. It's not just art. And that's why I feel it's so just beautiful and applicable to everything, because whatever it is that we are working on or creating, it's literally just the overall creation. It's not just the creation, but the world that we are creating for ourselves, not the actual object either, you know, but it all has meaning. And through this experience, I found that using art to take my trauma and use it as like a demonstration for my stories has been life-changing for me, to be able to explore myself and the art that I create in a different way. And I truly believe everyone has their own niche, you know. It's just a matter of letting go of that imposter syndrome, of that feeling, whatever fears, and being able to just dive into whatever it is. Because there's days where I don't want to create. I don't feel like creating. So what do? I play my hand pan. You know, it's still creation. What do? I go meal prep and make something, cook something. It doesn't always look the same every day, but it's still putting myself in the mindset of I need to keep creating, whatever that looks like. So
Interesting. So if you could be anywhere and there was no restriction, like it didn't matter, you had all the money in the world, you could be anywhere, do anything, what is it that you'd like to be doing?
I want to take my child and travel Europe. I would love to travel. I have traveled a lot already, and it's in my life path. Like, I'm a life path 5, and I'm meant for change. I'm meant for travel. And I have since a young age. Like, I've somehow have come upon these miraculous free vacations all the time. And so that is even more confirmation. But that, to explore an unknown area with my child, to show him the joys that I've experienced in my life as a child growing up in that way, I feel is beneficial. It's something that could change his life too. And I feel so strongly about wanting to leave here. It's just this nagging feeling of like, I need to get out of here. And it's been going on for a little while now. So yeah, that's what I would be doing.
Nice. Where in Europe would you go?
Well, I have a family member who lives in Sweden, and then the majority of my family is still in Germany. So I would definitely go to those places. I'm trying to figure out the Euro train. I would like to spend some time, you know, and take that with him and do that. The Netherlands, of course, and New Zealand are also up there, places that I want to go and visit. Oh, also, big thing, I want to go to the Louvre, and oh my gosh, I just want to go to all the art museums in Europe, and they're just beautiful, phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. In the Netherlands, you can buy a pass and you can visit. I think they've got 1,500 museums, but you can visit for free, and the pass is valid for a year.
What?
And it's all the big museums. Yeah,
Oh
and
my
they've got some
gosh.
really nice ones here. Yeah.
Yeah, see, I'm already gonna visit. It's gonna be life-changing.
Yeah, I tell you. And there's one that's actually a village where you can dress up and sleep there overnight. And you can dress up as if you're in the old days, and you sleep in one of the old houses upstairs. And the people that are visiting during the day think you're dressing up as part of the staff, but you're not. You're actually paying to be there.
Wow. That's so cool
which is,
though.
yeah, it's quite fun. Yeah, it's quite
Oh my
fun.
gosh. I didn't know anything like that existed.
You know, yeah, me neither. So I'm learning too. I'm learning too. Well, I tell you, while your son is still young, do it. I mean, you can't pay for that. That's something money cannot buy, is
Right.
experience.
Yes.
You know, and how and what shape it takes doesn't matter.
Mhm.
It's experience. All right. So where can people get hold of you?
People can get a hold of me on Facebook. That's my main, or I have TikTok too, but contacting me on Facebook. I would say my number two, but Facebook is the best way to go. It's Heart and Health, which is HART and Health. It's also, if you do the it's Haley A. Hope, because Hoffer to hope and farm, but to create. So that, yeah, Haley Hoffer on Facebook. That's the best way to get a hold of me. It's the same on TikTok, Haley Hoffer too.
Awesome. Great. I'll put all those links below. And then do you have a message for our viewers?
The message to be yourself. That's really, and it seems so easy to say. I mean, it is so easy to say, but actually doing it takes a lot of internal work more than we realize. There's people I recognize that are like, oh yeah, I am myself. But you can see they're doing things to please other people. You can see these things. So embracing in every single direction and area and corner of your life who you are fully, authentically, like that will attract your tribe. That will attract what's meant for you. So that's, I feel so important. Just be you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Because you can't be anyone else. They're all taken.
Yep.
Love that. Thank you so much. And yeah, I look forward to maybe connecting with you. Maybe when you come and visit the Netherlands, we can
Yes.
we go to a museum somewhere.
That would be
Um,
beautiful.
yeah, so it was lovely meeting you, Haley.
Thank you so much for your time and your energy and the opportunity to be able to share my story.